Hello, everyone. This is GokaiOrange, and boy, do I have a surprise for you. I've got with me a very special guest. You can hear his music at theme parks like SeaWorld Tampa and Tokyo Disneyland. He scored countless movies from inspirational Christmas flicks to crime thrillers, and composed for a handful of religious series like Hermie and Friends, On the Farm, and Little Dogs on the Prairie. But for the purpose of this interview, he was the composer for Danger Rangers. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Pottorf. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
You get bonus points. Not many people pronounce my name correctly. So.
I'm glad I got it on the first try. How's it going?
That's good. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for asking me to do this.
Yeah. I was not expecting to get anyone that was associated with the show, and I'm totally glad I managed to get someone. So I'm glad you're the first one.
Sure.
So, first question, just want to get a little bit personal. How did you get your start as a composer?
It's been a long road. I actually started playing instruments when I was 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then started writing music at the age of 9, and it was pretty much downhill from there. So, but I ended up performing in a theme park in Cincinnati, Ohio, called Kings Island.
Yeah, I actually saw you were part of this 20th anniversary special. That someone uploaded, and I was watching a bit of that, and man, that looked like a lot of fun.
Oh, you're talking about the Jason Priestley thing?
Yeah, from 90210.
Yeah, I actually wasn't performing at the parks that time. I was actually on staff with the company as their as a music director, but they asked me if I would play this role counter to Jason Priestley, and I was like, yeah, it should be fun. And he was just a heck of a nice guy, and we had a lot of fun because
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I performed in the theme parks as a singer dancer for about 5 seasons while I was in college, and ended up doing a USO DoD tour through the Mediterranean overseas. Cool. Ended up doing a bunch of industrial tours across the country in the Bahamas. Did a kids television show for USA Network. I was a 5-member cast. I was the leader of the group, and I was on USA Network for like 3 seasons or something like that. So what started off as just kind of my drama teacher from high school calling me and asking me if I wanted to audition with a bunch of other kids for Kings Island. I'd never seen a show there, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? So what started off as I have no idea what I'm doing ended up being a career chooser for me.
And that's typically how it goes. Like you just kind of thrust yourself into like whatever you want to do, and you kind of learn as you go along.
Yeah. I mean, I'd always been a musician. I'd always written music, so that's what I knew I wanted to do. I ended up going to Ohio University and then transferring to University of Cincinnati to the Conservatory of Music. So, it was never a question of what I really wanted to do, but I sort of, took a side path in the performance world for a while. And so in 86, 85, 86, somewhere around there, I decided I couldn't do the theme parks anymore. It was just, I stayed at the party a bit too long. So I knew I had to get some production chops. So I finally got an internship at a recording studio in Cincinnati, and, started off as an intern, emptying waste baskets and, wrapping cables and all this stuff, and worked my way up. About a year and a half total, I worked my way up to head producer and engineer. And
interesting.
Yeah. And that's where I got my production chops. And during that time I was writing commercials for certain clients, whether car commercials or radio, TV spots and things like that. So that's where I kind of, sharpened my skills, writing for media. And then after that, I went to Baltimore to work with a production company there, and came back to Cincinnati, Ohio. After about 2 years of that, it didn't work out. That's a whole different story. And ended up landing a job with the company that I was a performer for in the theme parks, King's Productions, as on their staff as music director with some other music directors. And that was 1988, 93. Paramount Studios came in and bought King's Productions and all the parks here in the U.S. and Canada. And that's when I became affiliated with Paramount. So I worked for Paramount for 11 years. And,
interesting.
Yeah, and at the end of that run, once again, it was just one of the, listen, whenever you're doing your career, you've got to be able to know when to move on.
Right.
And I probably should have done it maybe 2 years earlier, but I stayed, 11 years, and finally went, enough's enough. And I had already started doing a little bit of animation work, of writing music for animation. And so I had decided in '99 that it was time for me to leave, and that's when I resigned. I still did work for them, and had
Mm-hmm.
on great terms because I was the senior music composer and head of the department there, because I ran the 5 theme parks. So I, still did a lot of work for them after I left, which, when you're going independent, getting gigs is a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I worked for them for 11 years. Uh, Ran the 5 theme parks here in the U.S. and Canada. Left in '99 to pursue my own career in film and television, and never looked back. And what's been interesting is that, even though I am doing a lot of film and television,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I still find myself being drawn
Doing
back.
stuff for theme parks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just finished up another project for SeaWorld, and done a ton of stuff for Disney. And part of the reason that I get those jobs is because of my experience in the theme park
Yeah.
world. I know the ins and outs as far as what needs to be written, how it needs to be written, especially when you're writing for attractions or rides or shows or things like that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there is a formula, and there is things that you have to do to make it work within the context of a theme park and the audience and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that's my career path. It's short and sweet.
yeah, that's good to hear. Okay, so now that you had started working on animation, how did you first discover Danger Rangers? Was this like a something that just kind of came on your lap, or
Like, kind of, yeah. My studio was in a production facility
mm-hmm.
uh, down in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Mike Moore, who was the head of and creator of Danger Rangers, was in the facility one day, and we just got to talking, and he said, "Hey, I've got this project, this Danger Rangers, and we're going to do it on PBS and this and that. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd be great," because he had already heard some of my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, it kind of came to me. I didn't pursue it, and um, I did the first episode, and everybody loved it, and there you go. From that point forward, I was the music guy.
Cool. I know. So did you have any like inspirations for the score, or did more like requests like a certain vibe to it?
No, it was pretty much up to me, which was really great. I mean, I had total freedom creating that. And
Cool.
you have to understand, I grew up in the days of Bugs Bunny and
Mm-hmm.
Roadrunner, and all the Warner Brother classics. And Carl
Yeah.
Stalling was the composer back in the '40s and '50s who created all of that music. So I grew up with that, and that's what influenced me as far as writing animation. When you hear Danger Rangers, you'll hear a lot of influences. Danger Rangers, Little Dogs on the Prairie, especially, is another one that you'll
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot of that style stylistically. It's in that Warner Brothers, Carl Stalling
Yeah.
kind of writing, because I love that kind of cartoon writing. I mean, that's what makes it fun to watch and listen to.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite track that you did? Was there any that stood out to you?
Yeah. What's the episode? It's the one with the duck, and he's
Oh,
maniacal.
Where the Fun Never Stops.
Where the fun never stops. That's my most favorite score out of any of the episodes that I did. I had the most fun with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. Because I could hear there was some electric guitar work I heard in
Oh
there.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of almost had like a James Bond sort of feel to it at some
It
point.
was, yeah, I really, it was fun because I wasn't just locked into, the safety first, and,
Mm-hmm.
going after stuff, and, this had, I could spread my wings a little bit. And like you said, I did get to use a little, the baritone guitar, James Bond kind of thing. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my favorite one.
Yeah.
Funny. It's funny you ask. I never really thought about that, but the minute you said that, I'm like, yeah, the
Yeah.
one with the duck. What was that one?
Yeah. Of course, you weren't the only one that was doing music on the show. Randy Rogel, who did a lot of work for Animaniacs,
Yeah,
He did
Randy wrote all of the songs.
Did you have any like contact with him during this to like
Just kind of not really. I mean, our paths never really crossed. We were in two different disciplines. I mean,
okay.
I wrote the main title track, Danger Rangers. That
Mhm.
was my song. And then he wrote all the interior, there was
Okay.
I think there was one song per episode.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So Randy wrote the songs, and then I wrote all the underscore, and then I wrote the title track theme.
It's funny you bring up Little Dogs on the Prairie because I have in my collection of DVDs, I have some that have like or like religious versions, and they have like trailers for Little Dogs on the Prairie, Hermie and Friends, and all that stuff
Yeah.
on there. And I'm wondering, is there like a connection between like your work on there, or was that just kind of a coincidence?
I think it's coincidence.
That is a really interesting coincidence because like
Well, but you have to understand that in the faith-based field, especially animation, Tommy Nelson doesn't exist anymore. It's Thomas Nelson Publishing out of Nashville.
right.
Tommy Nelson was the one that had all the children's content, and they were the ones that produced Hermie and Friends and Gigi and Little Dogs on the Prairie and things like that. So that's where that relationship comes in. What's coincidental about it is that I was the composer on all of those animation
Yeah,
shows.
that's
Yeah.
pretty interesting because I had a group of friends that actually watched an episode of Little Dogs because one recently cropped up on YouTube because apparently it is like really hard to find, and like the DVDs for it I found on eBay are like super expensive, so it's
Yeah.
not the most common sight in the world. But
And what's really unfortunate about that actually was my most favorite animated series to score. I love Danger Rangers, had a great time with, but Little Dogs on the Prairie, especially like I said, going back to the whole Warner Brothers thing, the cartoons that were written and created with Warner Brothers, they were made for kids, but the humor was for adults.
yeah,
And that's the way Little Dogs on the Prairie was. I mean, the writing was just brilliant. And whether you're doing animation or live action, a film, cinema film, or anything like that, your music is only going to be as good as the production and the acting. And that's what motivates you and gives you inspiration. So when I'm doing a film, if the acting is really good, I just did a film with John Rhys Davies, Indiana Jones, Lord of the Rings.
right, yeah,
Yeah, John Rhys Davies. And it was so good that it's probably one of my most favorite scores that I've done. And then I got to do another one called When We Last Spoke with Corbin Burnson and Melissa Gilbert and Cloris Leachman. And once again, the acting was so good and the story was so good that it just makes it easy to write. Music kind of writes itself when you've got good product to write to.
yeah.
And that's the way Little Dogs was. The dialogue was just brilliant. And I would sit there, when you're writing, whether it's film or for live action or animation or whatever it is, I mean, you're listening to certain parts over and over and over again as you're writing it. But the Little Dogs, I would laugh every time they would, have a quip or a joke or some sort of line that just made me smile. I just love that series, and I was really disappointed when it ended. I was hoping it would go more seasons, but unfortunately, it didn't.
Can he make her truly his boy? Has a girlfriend.
Not anymore, he doesn't.
It's his own fault.
I heard that.
Who left the door open?
It's funny you bring up seasons because my next question, the current thing that I'm delving into right now is there was plans for, I believe, a second season of Danger Rangers that unfortunately didn't end up happening after after the company got liquidated.
Yeah.
I was wondering, were you like, how far into production was it before it got canned? Do you know?
We had finished up all the episodes. We had completed it wasn't supposed to be the final episode, but we had finished up that last episode when things kind of fell apart. There were some problems with the people in charge on the board, and I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but
No, of
it,
course not. No.
it basically it fell apart. I mean, everybody lost out on it because people couldn't agree on the direction of the company, and it was sad because it was a great cartoon. It was great animation.
Hmm.
Had a great message. It had a lot of potential, and it had a lot of fingers that could reach out and affect whether it was in healthcare or insurance, child
Hmm.
safety, things of that nature. And it couldn't happen because people just couldn't agree. So, and usually that happens more times than not when something starts to become successful.
Hmm.
Then everybody wants to take control and
Yeah,
even
it kind of felt like it blew up a little bit too early, and then you kind of get swept up in it all, and you don't know what to do. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of
it did. After that, though, it was on PBS to begin with. It did end up going on CBS Saturday morning.
right. It was I think it was called Cookie Jar TV.
Yeah, yeah, for a
It was on
season,
there
which was
for
great. And that was fun. I was glad to see that, and it definitely helps my ASCAP royalties when it ends up on network TV. So I was happy about that.
oh,
The
I,
gift,
I I can imagine
the
so.
gift that keeps on giving.
Hmm. Well, given the current circumstances right now, do you think the show could use a comeback if, like, someone like stepped forward and just like, okay, we're gonna try to get this thing back together.
I think I call it evergreen, an evergreen
Mhm.
meaning that it doesn't matter if it's 10 years old or 10 years in the future. I think it works no matter what. And yeah, I'd love to see it come back, but unfortunately, I just don't think there's anybody at the helm that has the creative
Yeah, because
fortitude to make it
through my
happen.
research, the guy who owns it right now is like owner of this realty company in Charlotte, and like he like let the websites relating to it expire because like I checked, one of them's like you can like purchase the domain name, and the other one's like a tech blog now.
Yeah.
So it really,
Well, and unfortunately, and like I want to be very delicate here on how I talk about this.
yeah, of course.
Um, um, when when that happened, when that particular person came in to into the fold,
Hmm.
I'm choosing my words wisely here. Um, Sometimes when you get people that have never had anything to do with creative aspect of
Hmm.
production, um, they they really want to get involved and can really kind of mess things up. And that's kind of, in my opinion, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, because like he was like a realtor. Like that's not really someone I would expect to be helming an animated series, but I mean,
Well,
it is what it is.
well, and two, a lot of times people that aren't in the creative field and they see something that's becoming successful, it's more
Mhm.
about the money than it is
Right.
about the creation
Right.
of the product.
Hmm.
And when you kind of add that component into something, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. It's a
Yeah.
common tale, and it unfortunately happened to Danger Rangers.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping something happens in the future. But before we go, do you have anything else that you want to plug?
I've got some films coming up that I'm not allowed to talk about. I start
Of
one
course,
next
of
month.
course.
I've got a TV pilot that I'll be doing sometime in July, and then two films after that. Um, watch for theaters; they're going to be theatrical releases. So there you go.
Awesome. And the what are the for those on what are the roller coasters that you're scoring for at SeaWorld?
SeaWorld. I've got two coasters that opened up this season. Now that COVID's starting to let up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One is Iron Gwazi. This is in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
They're both in Tampa. Iron Gwazi is their big new crazy roller coaster, and that was a fun project because the queue line that you go through is multi-layered and it's all themed in the whole 9 yards. And actually ended up writing 25 minutes of music score for that walkthrough.
Cool.
So yeah, so that was a big project. And then this year I just finished, or the beginning of this year I just finished up another one called Icebreaker, and it's a re-themed coaster that they have there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a shorter score. It was like an 8.5 minute score. But
Yeah.
yeah, those are the two coasters. If you go into SeaWorld in Tampa, you'll hear those. So yeah,
Awesome.
go visit, have fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking your time out to be interviewed. I really enjoyed talking with you.
You too, Nathan. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All
All
right.
right. And I'll see you guys next time.